Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, the welcome to members of the public and councillors. A brief health and safety introduction. We are not expecting a fire drill, but if the alarm does sound, please make your way to the nearest fire exit. The emergency exit at the back of the chambers will take you across the roof and down the fire escape. Take care, as this may be slippery wet. Or you can exit the way you enter the building through the police station and out of the front door. If it's not possible to get to an exit, then the lift lobby is a safety zone in the event of a fire. Under no circumstances should the lift be used, however. Please make sure that all mobile phones and devices are switched off or on silent. Any individuals wishing to record the meeting may do so from the seats reserved at the front of the public gallery. Please remember, anyone wishing to speak in the public participation part of the meeting should raise their hand and wait for me as the chair to gesture for you to carry on. Thank you. So we shall now start. Apologies for absence and declaration of substitute members, please.
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Chambers, substituted by Councillor Worcester, and apologies from Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much. Disclosure of interests. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interests and interests other than pecuniary interests, as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and the Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters of the agenda. Anyone? So item number three, public participation. To deal with any questions of brief representations from members of the public in accordance with Standing Order number 3 in Seaford Town Council policy. Anyone would like to speak? Mrs. Brett, please.
Madam Chairman and members of the committee, first of all, I'd like to say I'm very pleased to see that there are new conditions requiring a minimum floor retention for 4-star food hygiene rating for concession holders, and that they are now required to do litter clearance. Can the committee confirm that the Seaford Martello kiosk, that's what it's called, because I'm seeing here Snack Shack Martello and Splash Point kiosk on the council list as two separate places. Frankie's and the Sorts Cafe currently do hold at least a 4-star certificate, as this is not displayed anywhere on their door. I always thought that businesses would be proud to demonstrate to the public that their premises are fit for purpose and the staff food hygiene trade. Am I right in that these licences last for 3 years? Please can you also clarify the licence dates for the Martello kiosk, as in the time I've lived here it's been open all the year, including Christmas Day and Boxing Day. Right. On walking around the town, I see that there are many food outlets which don't display the sign, and research shows that they only have a low score according to the latest list. So I would have thought the council would want it displayed on their concessions to create consumer confidence, and I would ask with the next renewal this condition is added as well. I also believe that all the staff should have a valid food hygiene certificate, because frequently, like this morning for instance, they are working alone without supervision. And I don't know whether they've all got them or not, and I think that's something we need to make sure our local community is okay with, because if you're an elderly person or you're vulnerable because of illness and you get food poisoning, it is not fun. Okay, so that's really
Thank you
what
very
I'd like
much.
to consider. So there are 2 or 3 questions. Do you want me to pass them over to the clerk?
Yes, if you can, please.
Yeah, okay. And you can give me a written answer if you can't do it today. That's
Thank
fine.
you. I
I'll
appreciate your comments today,
Yeah,
and
thank
we'll
you.
be looking into it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Is it Mrs. Dunn, please?
Yeah. Good evening, members.
Good evening.
Chair, Sylvia Dunn. I've got a couple of different questions. So, once again, I'm sad to say the promenade is in a dreadful state, and I've lost count of how many times I've reported this to this district. Not only is it unsightly, but it gives a bad impression on Seaford Council, as it is, after all, in our town. Access is now very dangerous, especially to those less able or elderly, and many residents and visitors are staying away, which cannot be good for our seafront concessions, which rely on good trade through the warmer days. This is further compounded by the storm boards being still in place. An email received recently indicated that the work is being tackled, but I have seen firsthand only 2 to 3 guys attempting this. This is unrealistic, as it would take months to clear and for the job to be done to a good standard. Despite the bad weather, this is simply not good enough, and the district will make many excuses, so please with the council take this up again with Lewis District.
Thank you.
So I'd like to refer to, it's an item on the agenda to do with the projects and facilities managers report.
Yes.
Regarding the bench outside the library, which we all know it's caused a bit of a stir recently.
Okay.
The community services agenda that it was on the 28th of November 2013, and 1.4 of that report then did request that Seaford Town Council take ownership of the bench upon installation. But it went on to say that the designs had not at that time been completed and the potential value of the seating was not known, and it was recommended that agreement be given in principle subject to more detailed design being presented. At that meeting, unfortunately I was on community services but wasn't there that day, I was substituted, and the minutes agreed that in principle, but I have no recollection of it ever coming back, any designs ever coming back to this town, this council, full council, community services, so that we could have seen how intricate it was and what the maintenance, and obviously taking it on as ownership. So
Okay.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yes.
And the last one was about regards to the flood fair. I noticed that after the fun fair had gone, that the Marcello field had been left in quite a bad way. The weight of the vehicles and all the equipment had left deep ruts and plenty of mud, as the ground was very wet before they arrived. This field acts as a flood defence, allowing for water to drain away and not flood surrounding properties. Residents are concerned that with long-term damage to the field by very heavy vehicles staying over a longer period, that this will cause problems in the future. I'm sure these issues will be raised at the flood fair on the 27th of April.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Sophia. Anyone else? Roger.
Hello. Thank you,
Hello.
Madam Chairman. Committee. I see, regarding the Salts Recreation Ground, this is, agenda item 4, the Salts Recreation, the 204,898 as to, obviously in your presentation this evening to the committee, you will touch on this and give us the committee a better report than what's on the in your report, and also us, the members of the public here today, I think, because it doesn't go into depth as to what we have paid. Have we paid any money as of yet to the contractor? Is the contractor going to follow the specification or the contract that you've now got on site? Are they going to follow the original contract conditions? Because those original contract conditions need to be followed, so that all that bark that's underneath all that turf has to come stripped off, and the correct amount of topsoil then put back on, so that turf and any grass seed that is then planted has got the best possible start available. I see down at the Salts there's only half of the plain area that is actually fenced off. There were children. I've just driven past it just now, and there's children in there playing. So that site's not secure, which is a bit disappointing. It's a bit worrying, really. It doesn't appear to be. I visited the site yesterday. It doesn't appear to be. I haven't actually been down there today, but the diggers and that are all in the same position, and they don't appear to have done any concreting today. And the specification's changed. The specification has already changed, but I can't emphasise strongly enough, that the original specification needs to be followed, because we will have problems in the future if it's not done as to the original specification. And where they've been moving soil around, there's bricks and large stones. Are those large stones that are going to be covered up by soil, or are they going to go into the skip? Because they've been dumped in a position that the soil is probably going to go over top of those stones. They should have gone in straight into the skip rather than gone into an area outside. And just on the on page 3, the nature reserve expenses and expenditures seems to be a if I'm right in reading it right, it seems to be quite
Tree warden.
Pardon?
Is it the tree warden expenses?
No, the
Page 3.
4.500. Is it item 4.500? Nature reserve expenses.
Page 6.
Oh, page 6.
Page 6. It seems to be a large overspend on that. I just picked it up, but I can't emphasise strongly enough, you know, about the Salts Recreation Ground. You know, it's a great shame that the site wasn't shut when it was opened, and then, you know, it would have all had a good chance to have grown, and we wouldn't have been in this position now. But okay, thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Ben, would you like to address?
Yes, Chair. I mean, I'm not sure I'll be able to address every point that obviously
Yeah.
Mr. Foxwell's made, but just to obviously give you an update on exactly where we are with the salts. The specification is already changing. That's quite simply because the contractor has actually realised the scope of the work that's required to actually get grass back in there, and grass that maybe can be established to a degree that will survive. When we did test digs looking for the bark underneath, it was inevitably found that there wasn't enough soil under there, so they would have had to do a lot of excavation work to at least prepare the site before putting turf. So the solution that has been chosen by the contractor is to actually use eco-mulch, so the bonded rubber that in the majority of areas is the bonded rubber that's used around the main rope net, and essentially that is a long-lasting 5-year guarantee product that essentially doesn't have to, we don't then have to worry about wear and tear on grass and establishing grass growth. In areas where there are bark, that's obviously Mr. Foxwell has identified, they are actually using a sub-base before they apply that product. The product they're using doesn't actually need a sub-base either. You can apply it over tarmac, over grass, over mud with membrane. You can put it over pretty much anything, but they are going to use a sub-base in the areas where there's problems that obviously Mr. Foxwell has addressed. We have made one payment now to the contractor. That is the only way really that we could progress the matter without it becoming a higher level legal matter. So we have made a single payment which covers the cost of the equipment and the installation of the equipment. Essentially all landscaping costs have been extracted from any payments. We haven't paid any of that yet. And what it's allowed us to do is at least get to a point where we can negotiate with them on site and look realistically exactly what work they need to do. And they're taking progressive steps and assessing each item before they attack it, so they are taking their time and making sure they do the job correctly. The eco-mulch option for the surfacing is obviously the most, it's the most expensive option for them, but potentially the most expensive, but the longer term.
How long is this going to take?
The first phase that obviously Mr. Foxwell's referred to, that's fenced off, and as far as I was aware it's secure. I actually addressed that with them on the early days. If children are still getting in somewhere, then they shouldn't be, and they should either be supervised or, you know, they're not meant to be getting into that area. So I can check again to see how secure that is. Sorry, your question was, Chair?
Yeah, how long the rubber?
And the length of time, yes, I mean, we're still waiting for the prices on the next section of rubber surfacing that they're applying, so that'll decide how phase 1 rolls out. Hopefully next 7 to 10 days I'm hoping we can get the first phase done and then fence off the second half of the site to then work on that one. So potentially we will be looking towards the end of April, maybe into May, so we may lose the May bank holiday, but I think it really is in an effort to make sure the contract is going to deliver something that everyone can be
Yeah, because
happy with.
of course we know there is a sense of urgency with the summer holidays approaching, but I trust that now these contractors will be finally deciding to just get on with the work. And
yes, and just to clarify, they, as far as I'm concerned, they are definitely a huge mark above the previous contractors that were on site. It's the same clay manufacturer, but they are using different landscapers who quite simply just have a better eye for quality and how to install. So I do feel a lot more confident within it.
Excellent, thank you, thank you. Anyone? Yes, of course.
Can I just go back to Sylvia, your question about the library. As far as I'm aware, with the actual consultation around the library and that chair was taken last year solely by East Sussex. And as far as I'm aware, we weren't even informed about the consultation process to pick the actual chair. There was a meeting held there that I did pop my head into last year, which we weren't invited to. I didn't realise that the decision had been made in 2013 that we may take ownership of that chair. So it kind of went over my head at the time. But it wasn't something we were invited to. There was presentations from several artists on that day to East Sussex, and East Sussex chose who they thought gave the best presentation and design for the chair. From that day, the design was put, a model of the design was put in the library. I believe it was there for about a week. It was there for about a week. I saw it there myself many times, and it was for public to come and look at it and comment on it. And then so that's all we were aware of until it was actually built, let's believe. But it is coming up in the next full council meeting. The decision whether or not the council are going to take ownership of it, which I'm sure we're going to have a big discussion about. But where we're at the moment, I don't believe we've had any consultation or input.
Chair, may I just respond?
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Take standing orders.
To suspend standing orders, I think.
We suspend standing orders.
Oh, just to ask, was there not a panel? Because we, myself and another previous councillor, understood there was a panel, and that included a town councillor, that made the final. Wasn't there a panel that made the final decision rather than just East Sussex County Council?
If you'd like me to clarify, Chair, I can confirm that there was a panel which had a Seaford Town Councillor on it, and I think at least 2 Seaford residents.
Okay.
So there was a selection process for the artists, and that's how that particular design was chosen. One of my understandings of it was that the design had to be kept for certain periods through that time a little bit under wraps, purely for the impact
For the wow
of exactly how what's occurred
Certainly
now.
had.
And admittedly, what it's not helped me as an officer, it's not given me really the ability to present anything to council in a fixed sense to say this is how much it costs and this is what the implications are for maintenance. I have asked a number of questions about the type of material used for coatings, so the paint coatings essentially, with not sort of clear responses on those, because they were working on finding coatings that they could use. I'm confident that it's put together well, that's why it took so long to do, but essentially it's now up to the council to decide. I'll put the information in front of the full council to decide exactly.
So we look forward to that then.
Process.
Thank you very much.
Can I just make a
Councillor
comment?
Worcester,
As a councillor, I was asked how much the squashed seagull was.
We heard all sorts, haven't we? Well, you know, a piece of art is a piece of art when it provokes people to, you know, think, stop and admire or hate. That's art. So I'm happy with that. Having a piece of art in town is always good. So we move on from that to the next item, shall we? We do now agenda item number 4, please. The recommendations are, well, purpose of the report.
Sorry, we need to reinstate standing orders.
Oh yes, sorry. Thank you ever so much, Annie. You're so much more experienced than I am. I really appreciate that. So we're restating the standing orders now. Thank you very much. Sorry, do you want to?
Just wanted to mention we all sent an email from Bob Brown this morning about he wanted to raise something. Will that be raised? Will you answer?
Yeah, well, James has already answered that. Yeah.
Fine.
Right, next thing, item number 4, agenda item number 4, to inform members of the Community Services Committee of income and expenditure for the period 1st of April 2015 to 29th February 2016. Here, the recommendations are to approve that a recommendation be made to full council to transfer to earmarked reserve for tree wardens at detail number 1.4, and to approve the remainder of the report. The second recommendation actually is not necessary because we was pre-approved at full council. So we're just going to ask to approve the first item and the third item here of the recommendations. So yes, I will pass it on to Ben or whoever wanted to.
Yes, Chair, there's nothing for me to add on this,
Yes.
the information. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions, anybody? Councillor
I have
Worcester?
several. Shall
Yes.
I take them one at a time?
Indeed,
The first one is, there's mention here of the tree wardens.
yeah.
I noticed last year they planted 3 trees in Chinkton Road, and only 2 now exist. I just wondered if we got, or they had any idea of the scale of the vandalism that goes on, because obviously,
Sometimes
to
this
lose
is-
1 tree out of 3,
Mm.
if that were repeated throughout, I mean, we know the unfortunate happening up in the fields there, but
I think we need
I
to
just wondered
contact tree wardens for that, don't we?
I can do, Chair, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we keep records, obviously, of things that are on our open spaces. So the Crouch has suffered, some of the trees in the Crouch.
it does
have been
seem such a
vandalised.
Vandalised.
shame.
Yeah, we can certainly ask tree wardens if they keep records.
Right. And your second question?
Yeah, the 2 items that struck me with the figures that we were given here is in both cases sports pitch hire was well down. I wondered if there was any reason for that. That's on page 4.
I can answer that one,
Yes.
Chair. With that is one of the items that I've covered in a previous report.
Yeah.
Pitch income essentially was budgeted in the previous financial year, where we weren't entirely clear on what pitch income might be. We were using sort of very loose figures that had come from Lewis District Council. Because pitch income was something we never had. So it was estimates based upon figures that maybe weren't the most accurate. And I am finalising some anomalies in the accounts for the year end.
Okay.
So there may be additional income in those budgets, but they essentially will finish the year under budget. And we've covered that in the previous report.
Thank you, Ben. Any more questions, Councillor
Yes, the
Worcester?
final one has already been mentioned. Again, I applaud where we're under budget and so on, but the one that Roger mentioned, the nature reserve, with an overspend on page 6 of about £6,000. I wondered why that had happened.
I'll pass it on to you, Ben.
Yes,
again.
Chair.
45,000.
I must admit, it's obviously it's helpful that it's come to my attention so that I can investigate. Essentially, I'm not entirely sure what that is. The main budget is to cover the management contract with Sussex Wildlife Trust. So I'll have to look at exactly what that difference is.
Right, I have a question about swimming pool. I know that we do some contributions to the project, and well, I had a lot of people contacting me about the opening hours of the swimming pool to the residents of Seaford, because obviously it's a school swimming, it's used as school hours, and apparently the pool only opens in the morning for an hour before school for the residents, and also during the evenings. Most evenings they have the swimming clubs, which go on until well 8:30 in the evening. So a lot of people have been asking me, why is the pool not open if we can't negotiate opening hours that are a bit longer for the members of the public to use. Also, there's a 1 hour within the lunchtime of the school that's open for members of the public. And, you know, people are finding it really hard because, of course, we have the pool in the town and people cannot use, they have to go to New Haven or Eastbourne. And I was wondering if we could negotiate some kind of, you know, as we contribute with the pool, would that be any means for us to you know, ask for, you know, maybe a couple more hours during the week for members of the public to be able to use the pool as well? Because there's a lot of people talk about that.
Yes, yeah. I mean, essentially, it's a wave leisure decision on how on the operating hours that they utilise outside of school hours. and I think it's purely based upon staffing and cost. Our contribution to the swimming pool is based upon capital works or significant investment stages that they need to make to keep the pool running. That's why the budget was set up. There has been sort of discussions with pressures of revenue costs in the past, running costs for the pool. There's been discussions about whether that contribution would pay for revenue costs, but essentially that's not how it was set up. So
do you have councillors on the board of the swimming pool
we do,
management?
Chair, yes. Yeah. So I mean, essentially it's something that can be discussed, but I imagine that we would be met with a, would you be prepared to meet the cost of additional staffing?
Okay.
And as soon as you multiply that across a year, over several days of a week maybe, those accumulators might actually, you know, be a bit more of a stark reality. It's not necessarily something that can't be covered. I can bring it up at the next Seaford swimming pool meeting, or offer it to the councillor that sits on that committee so that they can maybe propose it as an option.
That would be good.
And then at least that committee can consider it.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah,
Councillor
one
Wester?
more. It mentions other open spaces, I presume. Is that Walmer Road, the football pitch, or...?
Chairman, other open spaces, Walmer Road's actually a Lewis District Council site. Yeah, but other open spaces includes anything which really isn't listed independently, so areas such as Normansell Park, the Ridings, North Way, Village Green and Princess Drive, a number of other areas, Sandal Road, even Blatchington Ponds in there, the War Memorial, Stane Road, Jubilee Gardens.
It's quite an abundant. All right then, so no more questions for this item. Are you all happy? Thank you very much. Let's move on to agenda, proposing. My head's up in the air today. Shall we so then propose the recommendations are approved? 1 and 3, rather than 2. Would you like to propose in second?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, show of hands please to approve the recommendations. Good. Thank you. Right, and now we move on. Get my head back into it. Right, next one, to inform members on progress and actions relating to Seaford Town Council assets and services. We recommended to note the contents of the report. So that's on to Ben again, the star of the show.
Yes, Chair. I mean, again, the majority of the information is covered in the report.
Yeah.
We've covered the sorts. Obviously, I'll provide an update for that particular project. And I'm happy to take questions on anything else. Obviously, there's been a lot of work going on, so any queries? The most important thing to note, actually, I must say, is that I've started to list the projects in appendices now, which obviously I've covered in the report. This is going to be linked to strategic objectives, which obviously James Corrigan, the town clerk, has given an initial training session on. And this will be the update point on exactly where we stand with each project. And if the project is not on this list, then it's not something that we as officers will be prioritising.
Okay.
So this will be a guiding document that really governs how we spend our time at the town council. So it is quite important that obviously members are able to see this regularly, and we'll keep it up to date.
Like a calendar of things that are being done, so it's very useful, I think. Thank you for organising that. Anybody's got any questions?
Yeah, it was mentioned earlier, this question of the food hygiene certificate.
Yeah.
One, I don't think there's a legal obligation to display it, but can we actually insist that a rating of 4 stars is actually obtained and maintained?
I would love to.
Yes, Chair. Yeah, I mean that is something that I've included in the terms and conditions.
Yes.
We, as a landlord, are in a position that we can require that.
Absolutely.
Whether we actually regulate it is the other side of it. That is for the Food Standards Agency to regulate, and again from the point of view of displaying it at the premises and whether the staff have hygiene certificates themselves, that's something really the Food
I think
Standard
that's very
Agencies will
important.
regulate.
Yeah.
We can ask, certainly at this stage verbally, that they display it,
Mm-hmm.
because we are going to be
I would love to
monitoring
see
it.
that, yes.
And at the moment, sorry, just going back to the question as well, I'm just awaiting confirmation of the 4-star rating. I'm pretty sure that there's 4 or 5-star in all
Oh,
cases.
excellent.
So I'm just reviewing that.
That's excellent. Thank you very much.
Is
Councillor Hayden?
is health visitor visit them always, or how is?
Yes, Chair. I understand it's usually annual. It depends on performance levels though. If they performed well on a 5-star regularly, then they might do a review stage verbally with them.
Yeah, it's, if I could just clarify what it's every 2.5 years. It's Lewis District EHO who will visit every establishment that has a star rating or sells any food or beverage across the whole of the district. And they will get visited every 2.5 years. They have to keep all the records, and they're very thorough. It is a full inspection every single time. You know, gloves on, lifting stuff, looking, searching, backdating records, and yeah, they're thorough. So anybody who has a 4, that's a good standard. You know, because you can miss out on a 5 by not through fault of your own, just not having the shape of the building. So you know, a 4 is a good standard. Is a good standard for the seafront, because they will not have, just because of where they're located, it would be very hard for them to get a 5. But it's not a legal requirement to display it, or to display what you have. But we should ask them to if they can.
Excellent, thank you very much. Yes, just one thing I was going to say about the Seaford Town Guide. We had a surgery here, first surgery of the councillors that we organised. We agreed to do that at the last full council meeting, and it was very successful. We had one person turn up. It was not a total waste of our time.
No complaints.
Three councillors there, myself, Councillor Freeman and Councillor Warraven. So that's a beginning, which I was happy to see someone turn up. So we didn't completely waste our Saturday morning. But yeah, had an offer from a member of, one of our residents, that she works as a publisher, and she does marketing and all that, and she would like to offer to speak about layouts and how to improve the tourist guide, the Seaford Town Guide. Very, very helpful lady, so I'd just like to thank her for coming to the surgery and offering to help voluntarily. So just to let you know and advise you that we'll be getting a request for a meeting soon with this lady called Fiona Lewis. Thank you, Fiona Lewis.
Was somebody trying to get it sorted?
Yeah.
Is there
I think that's seagulls.
Is that one from outside the library?
That one's been splashed.
That's a fallen angel.
Okay. Thank you very much for the report, Ben. Any more comments on this report?
Yeah, have we taken over maintenance of the rotary clock, have we?
Yes.
That must have been before my time, but I didn't realise that.
Yes, Chair. The rotary clock was essentially ours to maintain in the early stages, and we had some problems with obviously getting it relocated and getting it back up and running.
Yeah.
And yes, it is ours to look after. It was one of the conditions of it coming over to the Town Council from the rotary.
Right.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Just now we all look forward to the Seahaven Flood Fair. I think it's going to be an excellent event, so thanks for all involved in the organisation. Now for the Bullman.
Yeah, just quickly, Chair, regarding high and over, are we looking at just going to go to seasonal leases for that?
Yes, Chair. It's, I'll be exploring. Seasonal is really the approach that I'll take. I'm actually looking at whether we can do weekly or weekend lets, or even day rates, where people can actually just attend the site. It might be a bit more achievable, just to
Okay, that's a
generate
good idea.
some sort of interest and
Yes.
income from it. I'll look at how I set that up, certainly during holiday periods as well.
That's an excellent idea. Thank you very much, Councillor Freeman.
Could I just remind everybody about the Seaford Town Neighbourhood Plan launch, which is next Wednesday evening, 20th of April, at the Baptist Church Hall, Belgrave Road, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m, and a presentation at 7:30. And we'd like to see people volunteering to join the work parties, please.
Thank you.
Dying to, aren't you?
And there is a website, isn't there?
There is a website as well, Seaford Town Neighbourhood Plan. It's on there's a Facebook page. So,
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And so we just need to note the contents of the report. Yes? No proposal, seconder? Proposal? Second? Yes. Thank you very much. And is that the end? That is the end of our meeting. Thank you ever so much for coming. And meeting finished at 7:30.